gonna grab a couple of end seats. I see you on the,
Most of you know me, I'm Rebecca Wilkerson. We want to thank Renee King and Ted Nelson. This was their idea. They wanted to get you guys in front of the candidates, get you guys to actually meet the candidates. A lot of times these, the state candidates like Todd Halbert for auditor, we don't get to talk to them, we don't know, we just see their name on the ballot. And that's not, you know, it's nice to get to meet them and get to know them before you vote for them. We're going to go ahead and start. I don't know which order we do. Do we do the pledge first and then the prayer? Or I'm not used to doing this type of thing. Don is going to lead anybody that is interested in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the Constitution which founded our republic, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I have asked Dave to pray for us. Dave Harrrison is from up by Pisgah. You want a microphone?
Let's stand and pray. Our Lord, you are sovereign over all things. We pray for this group, we pray for this land, we pray for this county in this new and unknown season we are in. We pray for peace in the land. We pray for Harrison County and the state of Iowa, that you would fill this county with faithful saints in your love and service to lead the way through these times. Father, we pray this morning that this gathering would be to your glory, and we pray, Father, that as we are together here today, we pray, Father, that once again, that it would be to your glory. In Jesus, our Savior's name, we pray. Amen.
Amen. A couple words of business. There was, on some of the flyers it said free will donation. We are not taking any money. The people that donated the flyers, printed the flyers, donated the flyers, everything people are donating their time and money. We are not charging anything. So we would prefer that you, if you choose to give money, you support the candidates. And I'm asking you to support the candidates, not just here. As you all see, I happen to have Mark Cisneros shirt on. Mark is a true conservative. He's a believer. He is a conservative. He stands by what he believes in, and he votes the same way. Some of these candidates across the state, Todd Halbert, Doug Campbell, Sandy Salmon, Leanna Stoltenberg, Alina Hayes, they are conservatives. They are true conservative believers. We need to support them. They don't have a lot of money. They don't have the big money support. But we need to get the conservatives like them in office. And one of the other things I'm going to say is the things that I'm saying up here today, they are my opinion. I am here as Rebecca Wilkerson, citizen of the United States. I am not here promoting any group, I am a Republican, and I'm going to stay a Republican, but that doesn't mean that I'm here as me. So what I say is my opinion alone. It doesn't have anything to do with the Republican Party. It doesn't have anything to do with any group. It is my opinion. There was a lot of information on the back table. ICI, Informed Choice Iowa, is a group that has done so much. And it's not about abortion. Informed Choice Iowa is about a lot about vaccinations, the jab, and they are having a conference in Des Moines on November 12th. There's information, there's flyers back there about Informed Choice Iowa's conference. Dr. Ben Tapper, Dr. Pierre Corey, Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. Scott Atlas, and Kevin Berry are all going to be at that conference. They have an awesome conference. It's amazing how many vaccinations we are being told we have to give our children now. We don't have to give our children. And go to these conferences and learn about this stuff. And then the other thing that, I don't know if anybody will have that question today, but and hopefully Matt and Mark can address it. The Second Amendment is on the ballot for Iowa. It's awesome. Make sure you turn the ballot over. One of my questions for Matt is going to be about that Second Amendment. Yes, I'm a Second Amendment supporter, but I have a little bit of questions about the wording. I would just like him to explain. I've asked, and I understand the wording now, but I'd like for you guys to hear it from Matt. There's pocket constitutions back there. There was no wind farms here. And I told Tony I would get him one of these. This is actually a group down from Pot County, I think. Renee got these. If anybody wants one of these, I ran out. I didn't have time to make enough copies, and I couldn't get enough copies from them. But if you want this talks a little bit about landowner information. There's a wealth of information on this. And then there are several other flyers back there about Khrushchev's statement about how you take over a country. There's a flyer on the Convention of States that was handed out at county convention, the Republican County Convention. It's a really, really interesting flyer that Kip and Sheila Murphy did. That tells why we don't want a Convention of States. And then there's a couple of flyers back. Check them out. JPS was going to be here, but she wasn't able to come. At about 10:30, I'm going to try to zoom in. Rick Stewart had said he would come, and he can't. So I told him I'd zoom in and let him, give you his feel for 5 minutes or so. And we're going to start, though, I think we'll start with Todd Halbert, because a lot of the questions won't be for Todd. They'll be for Matt and Mark, Brian, and Tony. But I will start with Todd, and I'll let him introduce himself and say what he wants to say, and have some questions for him.
Thank you, Rebecca. And thank you all for coming out, and thanks to the group that put this together. I couldn't agree with Rebecca anymore. I am a Republican, but we, the people, get to decide who we want to elect in our offices. So this is a good conversation with all voters, and I couldn't agree more with Rebecca. Because if we can't have conversations, then I think we've kind of lost our will as an electorate. But anyway, Todd Halbert running for state auditor, and some of you do know me, some of you don't know me. Let's just start there first, because the reality of it is I was in a primary back on June 7th. I won that primary, and I want to thank the people that did vote for me in that primary. If you didn't have a chance to vote for me, or if you didn't know anything about me, I want to earn your vote on November 8th. Because right now I'm running against my opponent, Rob Sand, as the incumbent auditor of state. And I think I am a well-qualified candidate that did win that primary because of my experience and my background in banking, finance, and being a CFO. And I think most importantly too, is that for the auditor's role, the government does not have any money. It just has all of your money. And it collects all of your money and spends your money. And the role of the auditor's role is to make sure it's properly collected and properly spent. And so whether or not that's Republican, Independent, or Democrat, I follow the rule of law, believe in the Constitution, and the auditor's role is pretty simple. It's black and white. It's what's been put on by the lawmakers and approved over the years, and we audit against that. So I think Dave Vaught, the former Republican auditor, probably said it best. It's kind of like people said, well, what do you audit? What does the auditor do? I think one of his comments is appropriate. In God we trust, all others we audit. It's pretty simple. So, now let me explain that a little bit. The auditor's purview is over the large 27 large agencies, and then also the city, county, and school boards. So that's just kind of a high level. But anyway, I did win that primary. Just a little quick background about myself. I'm originally from Carroll, which is just right up the road, Highway 30, about an hour from here. And I graduated there in 1985 and born and raised there. There is a town named Helber, just south of Carroll. Maybe some of you have been there. And it's a town of about 250 people. And it's named after my great-great-uncle, Anton Helber, who immigrated in 1854 from Germany. Landed in Dubuque and then proceeded to come to Western Iowa and started that town. So I grew up in Carroll, and then I guess my second hometown I consider is Griswold, Iowa. That's where my wife is from, Diane. We've been married 27 years. That's just an hour or so south here. And her parents still live on the family farm there in Griswold. So we have two boys. I have one at, well, both of them are at Iowa now. Jack, our oldest, is a geology major, and he's going to graduate in December, hopefully. So if anybody needs a good geologist to get a lot of oil somewhere, let me know. We need that. And second of all, our second son is the sophomore now at Iowa. He's getting his business degree in accounting there. He started at BMAC for his first year. We are hosting, I guess I do have a third child right now because we are hosting a foreign exchange student for a year, Matthias. He's from Dortmund, Germany, and we've had him like the last 2 months, and he's been fantastic. So it's been fun to do that process. Experience-wise, I started my education was at the University of Iowa. Got my business degree there in 1989. And then started my banking career with Norwest Bank back in the day. It's now called Wells Fargo. They bought them out a long time ago. I was with them about 10 years and then ended up at U.S. Bank. So 15 years of banking and finance experience with those banks. My wife and I also own a small business in Clive. We live in Clive, Iowa now. And we've lived there for the last 20 years. It's a small school supply distribution company, and started that in 2004. So, also, I was the CFO of the large state agency, Iowa Alcohol Beverage Division, for about 3 years. So I know the budget system, I know the finance system, I know the procurement laws, been through several state audits at that agency, and so I think I can take that experience not only at that one state agency, but cover the rest of the state and then the rest of the cities, counties, and school districts as well. So let me start with just a real quick snapshot of the Alcohol Beverage Division. Some of you may or may not have heard because recently, just this last week, I did win a wrongful termination lawsuit against the Iowa Alcohol Beverage Division. 4 years that took. Jury trial, decided that last Friday. 5-day trial. Not something that I ever want to go through again, but I did win. And truth will prevail at all times, I feel. And I stood up for what was wrong at the Iowa Alcohol Beverage Division. I stood up for the taxpayers there. I felt like a regulatory agency like that was overcharging on liquor prices and doing no-bid contracts. Ultimately, I paid that price and was terminated wrongfully and fired. $8.2 million in overcharge was a small sample that I did at the Alcohol Beverage Division. Now, State Auditor Rob Sand has known that information since June 2019. He's also known it since December of 2019. Have you heard of any special investigation of $8.2 million? I don't think so. Maybe you might want to take a look at that. Because I don't think that's in the state procurement or the state auditor's chapter, there's one line, 11.2. And it's even on his website. State agencies must immediately notify the auditor's office if there is fraud, embezzlement, or significant financial irregularity. I don't know about you, but $8.2 million seems pretty significant to me. Just a start. Now, since he's been there, and since he's known that since June of 2019, that small sample that I did has grown significantly. So around $4 to $5 million a year since he's been in office. If you do the math on that, let's just call it $15 to $16 million. So I stood up for the taxpayers there. I stood up for myself and workers that are on the front lines of these large state agencies, cities, counties, school districts. When they're seeing something wrong, you could get retaliated against. But it takes courage, conviction, honesty, dedication to do what's right. If you look at my signs back there, standing up for what's right. And I believe when you pay the ultimate price for that, it shows the courage and conviction of what a state auditor does, because you can't let politics get involved in that. I didn't know who, well, it's a Democrat or a Republican at that state agency when I went through that, and I didn't care. But it was the right thing to do. So now I'm asking for your vote to do the right thing as the state auditor. And I hope to receive that on November 8th. So just a quick couple highlights. I know we're running out of time. We're okay? Okay. I know Rick is beaming in here somewhere from the Zoom. But 3-point auditing, and I'm not going to go into, these are just large bucket items, and then I might share just one of those items. Save the taxpayer money by stopping fraud, waste, and abuse. I've proven myself on that. Second, accountability to all Iowa taxpayers and to all Iowans from our state government. And 3, make some money for the state by creating efficiencies and limiting some of our government overreaches of the government. Now I want to just talk real briefly about number 2, accountability to all Iowa taxpayers and all Iowans. Currently there's a law in place called periodic exam. What does that mean? That means for towns or cities that are under a population of 2,000 and a budget of under $1 million, they get audited every 8 years. Every 8 years. Let's think about that. Your 8-year-old daughter or son check out of their lives for 8 years until they get their driver's license. What could go wrong there, right? And guess what? In the special investigations that the auditor's office reviews and highlights every year, there was about 25 of them last fiscal year. Guess where about 30% of those came from? Towns of 2,000 and less. So let's be more preventative. The money's out the door. Let's put our resources there. There are 100 cities, basically, let's just call it about 10 per county throughout the state of Iowa that fall into this bucket. I don't think that those people are getting an accountable government for them and their tax dollars, when they're only just getting audited 8 years and the money's out the door. If it is, I'm not saying it will happen, but it could very well happen. And there's been multiple examples of it. So I think that needs to change to at least every 2 years and get it to every year. I think we just need more representation. That's over 200,000 people throughout those cities that need to have more accountability or they're asking for more accountability for their government. So how can you help? Well, if you like what you hear, it comes down to 3 things: time, talent, and treasure. Everyone talks about the treasure. I'd love to have your support money-wise. I know time is tough. If you want to donate and that's your thing, great. Go to my website, donate, and or send a check. But I want to talk about 2 of the most important things and how I'm going to win this race. Time. I hope you take the time to take a yard sign. Very simple. Talent. We're very talented on our phones. We send texts all day long. We receive texts all day long. And all I'm asking is just, if you like to support me, take one of these, take a snapshot out of it, and send it to maybe 10 of your friends, or 20 friends. And I appreciate the time, and I look for your support on November 8th. And I guess we'll take some questions, but I see it's 10:30, so you do what you want to do.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and quick zoom in, Rick, and then if people have questions, they can be thinking about it, and and ask you after it. It'll take me just a second. Actually, if somebody has a question, does anybody have a question for Todd? Alrighty.
You can talk to me afterwards as well.
Yeah. We are gonna, later we'll take a little break so that, I mean, some people don't like to sit for 2 hours. And we'll go from there. Let's see if I can get Rick in here on Zoom. While I'm waiting for that, we do have a couple people here I'd like to acknowledge, other than the representative. Okay, so raise your hand if you don't know who these gentlemen are.
I don't know that guy.
Okay, so while I'm trying to get Rick on the line, Mark, this is Mark Costello, our senator in District 8. And because of the redistricting, we got Mark is in our district, he's in District 8. So because of Iowa, the way Iowa code reads, Mark, my understanding is he has had an election within the last 2 years, and so then he doesn't have to have an election. And no offense against Mark. Mark, you're going to learn that I'm very blunt. I say what I think. It's nothing against you, but I don't like it. I don't like the fact that we didn't get to vote for our senator. And I don't know Mark. I maybe would vote for Mark. But I don't like that the code doesn't let us vote for who our senator is. We just get redistricted and we get Mark. I mean, maybe it's a very good thing. I've heard he's a conservative, homeschools farmer. That's probably a really good thing, but I would like to vote.
All right, so thanks for that. It's a little bit like an arranged marriage. I'm like, oh, what am I doing? So I appreciate that. I have heard good things about Harrison County, though. I'm looking forward to it. I associate with Matt and Jason, and so that's a very good thing in my opinion. They're good friends of mine, and I appreciate them. I started out in the House for a couple of years, and I have to say Matt actually mentored me a fair bit there. I remember asking him how to run a bill one time. I thought it's kind of funny now I do it all the time. But he's been a very good encouragement to me. So, and Jason sits right in front of me in the Iowa Senate, and I do a Bible study that he leads with him. And so I have been in the Senate now for 8 years. When Senator Joni Ernst went to the U.S. Senate, I was in her district, so I had a special election for that and moved to the Senate then. I do have a family of 5 children. My wife and I have been married almost 22 years now, and my oldest son and my oldest daughter are students up at the University of Northern Iowa. We have homeschooled from when we were little. Still have three boys at home that work with me there on the farm, and my wife homeschools them. I am a Christian. That's kind of the way my worldview is, a Christian worldview. That's how I look at things, that's how I legislate, that's how I try to live my life.
Mark, they can't hear you in the back. You have to come.
Oh, you did, okay? There we go.
Microphone supreme.
Sounds really loud to me. But yeah, I've been enjoying life on the farm. I did start out as a computer programmer. I did that for 5 years and saved my money and then bought my first farm, and I've been farming since 1990. I have cut back a bit since in the Senate, I sold my cows. Don't do quite as much, but I still actively farm. And I do move my family up to the Clive. Actually, I'm your neighbor, Todd. So when I'm up there during session, and then we move back to the farm after session is over. I like having my family with there, and I can be with them every night. I think that's important. I'm a family guy. I guess in the legislature, I currently am the co-chair of the Human Resources Budget Subcommittee, and through that committee, I get to do a lot of interesting bills. We've done some defunding of Planned Parenthood in that bill.
Keep it up.
Things like that. So I'm happy to do that and encourage people to do pro-life things. I recently This last summer, I got the Dwayne Alonzo Award, which is award to the legislator who most embodies Christian values and represents Christ in the legislature. So I was really honored by that. And I have worked with trying to help crisis pregnancy centers. We're working on a program to try and give them more reimbursement for the things that they do to help support women who do decide to choose their baby. So that's part of what I do. I'm also on the Agricultural Committee, the Ethics Committee, Veterans Affairs, and so that's kind of what I do. I spend most of my time in the Human Resources Committee in that budget. So I'm looking forward to this next year. I do have the governor has some priorities, and one of those is school choice, and I'm a school choice advocate. I think that we should educate our children the way that the parents want to educate their children, want them, give them an opportunity to go where they want to. And so I'm a supporter of that initiative the governor has. In general, I try to just work with people, listen to everyone. Even if I don't agree with you, I'll try and listen to you. Unless you get nasty, you start cussing at me, I won't visit with you. I'm sorry. But I do look forward to representing this area. I feel bad about losing some of my good counties, but I'm looking forward to being with you and getting to know you. And that's why I came up here, because I want you to get a chance to see my face and know who I am, and know that I'll be here working for you. Thank you.
And Rick has some delays, he said. He texted me and said he's had some delays. So we're going to move on. One of the questions I have for you, Mark, and people wrote down the questions, so all these questions might not be my questions, but I'm just going to read them. It's easier if I just read them, and some people don't want to put their name to questions. I understand that. People want to fire them at me, that's fine. Go ahead. I have a question for you. You are conservative Christian. Are you willing to stand up to leadership if it goes against your Christian values, your conservative values, put it that way?
Okay, so if that happens, yes. I'm really happy with our governor right now. I think she's being very conservative. She's doing a lot of really good things. Now, there are certain things that I feel so strongly that even if you all disagree with me on the pro-life thing, I'll probably vote pro-life. I'm confident that Harrison County, at least Harrison County Republicans, agree with me on that. But I'm not a cow by power, and I'm not one who's like going to just do what they want. But I have to say that usually in the Senate and with our governor, I've been very happy with our leadership so far, and so it hasn't been an issue. But I'm not someone who's not going to speak up when I see something wrong. Thank you.
One of the things that I want to be different about this forum is don't be afraid to cheer. Don't be afraid to clap a little bit. Let them know this isn't your rigid. You can't clap. You can't boo. Be respectful. But on an honest note, how do they know if you like something if you don't cheer? How do they know if you don't like something if you don't say? I don't want you booing so we can't hear them, but just give a little sign of, hey, we don't like that. That's okay. Yeah, exactly.
After all, they work for us.
Right, they work for us. And Jason was always really good about visiting, answering questions, answering phone call. As Matt will contest to Mark, they get a lot of phone calls and messages and texts from me. And Matt and Jason were both awesome about answering. We disagree on a lot of things, but we discuss it in a simple manner. And it's been awesome. And I'm assuming, I really feel that Mark will be the same way. I trust that. I just do. And I hope you guys, if you talk to him, find out how he wants you to contact him, whether it's an email or text or whatever, and And just let him know how you think about things. Let these gentlemen know. They don't know in Des Moines. They're not mind readers. And if you like what they're doing, be sure and tell them that too. We're famous for letting people know when we don't like something. But how about let's let them know when we do like something. And give them encouragement. Because it's not an easy job down there. It's not an easy job down in Des Moines. So please, let them know when you like something, when you don't.
5-0 pro-life.
Yeah. Steve Corey's here, and I'm going to quick let him. Where did Steve go? Oh, okay. Before we ask too many other questions, I'm going to have Steve talk about the carbon pipeline, and because it is so huge, we need to know about this. I didn't even know Steve was coming.
You caught me, you did, yeah.
What's that?
You almost caught me off guard.
Yeah, sorry, I'm kind
That's
of
okay.
like that, you all know. All right, this is Steve Corey. I have never met Steve Corey before. I've heard the name. I looked at him, I said, who are you? And I heard his name, and I'm like, yes. All right, so without further, here's Steve.
Well, this is rather impromptu. I've heard Rebecca's name as well, so it goes both directions, right? I'll just give you just a quick about myself. I'm wearing a shirt that says Team Iowa on it. I happen to be the leader of an organization here in the state. We're part of a national organization called Team America, led by a retired Army Major, Special Operations Command Intelligence Officer. His name is Jeffrey Prather. If you want to know about him, jeffreyprather.com. He was a DEA agent, DIA agent. He was the one who blew the whistle on Obama's gun running operation called Fast and Furious. 2 of his buddies were murdered with our guns. Then, of course, you know what the government does to whistleblowers. He was never charged. He came through it. I'm sure his wallet was a lot lighter when he was done. But he has since, and then of course they kicked him out about a few months before he was getting retired from that. So another pension there that he lost. He's a chaplain. He's got to do chaplaincy. I don't know where he has time for all this. He's also a 6th degree martial artist. He's trained military, law enforcement, and handgun, martial arts, et cetera, and his new mission is to take back, and it says it right back here on this back of the sweatshirt, to take back our republic, legally, morally, and ethically. After 63 years of life, I was trying to figure out, why am I here? Been asking that question since I was this tall. What is the reason? What's my mission? Why did the Lord put me here? And something resonated with me with Jeffrey's message. So it's like, how can I get involved? You know, politics is not my cup of tea because I'm like Rebecca. If it's on my heart, I'm going to say it. I'm going to try to deliver my message to our representatives as gracefully and lovingly as possible. But if they're not doing the job that I hired them to do, they're going to know about it. So I'm not good at politics, but I'm engaged now in the process. I think that right now politics in our country, the paradigm as we know it, is broken. Ben Franklin said when he was asked, "What have you given us?" "I've given you a republic, dear, if you can keep it." We've lost it. We're not a republic. We haven't been one for a long, long time. The only way that we're going to take our republic back, it's not through the political process anymore. It's that far gone. I spent 45 minutes yesterday on the phone with State Senator Julie Mueller from South Dakota, which is I'm a native of. I've lived here in Iowa now, in Woodbury County, southern Woodbury County for 30 years. Moved my wife back here from San Diego, lived in the cornfields for 30 years, and she's still married to me. Can you believe that? Anyway, I got in touch with Julie Mueller through Tammy Colton. Right, John Birch said she's supposed to be here, she's not, so I'll do my best to represent her. She's an awesome warrior for freedom. Julie, who is not even a representative of mine, because I don't even live in her state, I sent her an email. She sent me an email back the same day and said, here's my cell phone number. I'm like, holy moly. I've sent emails to representatives in my own state and not heard a darn thing.
That's right.
I'm like, wow, I'm impressed. Guess what I did yesterday morning? I called her, she called me back. I was on the phone with her for 45 minutes. She's a West River girl, Rapid City. Now, show me, everybody, please raise your hands. What do you think about South Dakota? Is it a conservative bastion?
Oh, yes.
It is, right?
Yes.
Wrong.
That's the appearance.
Wrong. Christy Nome has been bought and paid for. She was a rock star. I was at Sturgis last year. I made sure I was in Deadwood, but she was there, rode in on her horse with the flag and all that, listened to all that. She's bought and paid for. And when Julie shared what they're trying to do with the taxing of our ranchers in South Dakota, they want to change the tax code for pasture land that these guys are running cattle on, that if it could be deemed good crop ground, they want to tax the ranchers for that pasture ground as crop ground. It's a higher tax rate. What do you think that's going to do to those guys? Put them out of business, right? So here's where I'm going with this, and I'll keep it short to honor you for that, for allowing me to speak. I'm a Republican. I came from the left. I left the left a long time ago. I was raised in South Dakota in a very liberal, democratic household, my mom and dad. And I learned a lot from that. I went to a very conservative college of Michigan and really got an understanding of the Federal Reserve and fiat currency, because our professors, our econ professors there, were over the target way back then. Anyway, right now, we have two different wings, right? We have a left wing, we have a right wing. Here's the problem. Both wings are attached to the same bird. Here is the example of it. This is the carbon capture pipeline. 3 different pipelines that they want to build across the heartland, across our farmland, our private property, through the use of eminent domain by private companies. This is called fascism.
Yes.
When government and corporations link up together and do these types of criminal acts. So we got ex-governor Terry Branstad, and his son, so there's 2. We've got Tom Vilsack. Wait a minute, he's a Democrat. He's now our Secretary of Agriculture. He's in on this. Follow the money. Follow the money. State auditor over here, candidate, talked about that. Okay, at the very bottom of it is guess who? Governor Kim Reynolds. All right? She's lined it up. Between Branstad and Reynolds, they're the ones who put all 3 members on the IUB, and they're the ones, the IUB, Iowa Utilities Board, is going to make the decision, folks. There was a CO2 pipeline, still exists, down in Mississippi. In 2021, Anita? Something like that? One of my other members of the team is right over here. By the way, I've got some real political warriors on Team Iowa. Shelley Stave, Sonia Swan, I could go on. We're going to rattle the cages in Des Moines. We are going to hold every one of these guys who are operating there as legislators accountable. But anyway, there was a release of CO2 into a small village in Mississippi. The first responders didn't even know what to do. I just retired 28 years on Salem Fire Rescue. And we had Port Neal. That was our baby. You guys know the complex up the interstate, right? Some pretty bad stuff up there. You don't want to mess with carbon dioxide. It's a silent killer. It stays low on the ground. You can't smell it, you can't see it. First responders can't deal with it unless they're in an SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus. Their equipment won't run. It's highly, highly poisonous. It's asphyxiant. You can't breathe. By the way, the whole green movement is BS. It's part of the UN Agenda 2030 and Agenda 2050. And if you don't believe that, you just go look at it. They're not hiding it anymore, you guys. World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, Harari, right? You guys heard about it. They don't want us on this planet.
Useless eaters.
We gotta have these guys understand that clearly. If you truly are conservative, if you truly are a worshiper and a follower of Christ, you have to understand the war we're in today is the war between good and evil. Period. So anyway, this is really important. You guys, I said this 2 weeks ago, we have an event in Des Moines. Team Iowa sponsored. And I kept telling the people that were there over 2 days, what are you going to do when you go home from this event? If you just go home and you're a keyboard captain, that's not going to do it. I came down here this morning from Woodbury County. I wanted to be mad. I wanted to see some of the other candidates, see what they're saying. And all I can say is, if they're saying what you want them to say, hold them to it. But you got to take action. You got to go to Des Moines. We lost a great Health Freedom and Privacy Act last year. Should never have happened. We had the biggest gathering, right, man? We had doctors flown in here from around the country. And the legislators that were there were going, yeah, but it died. How did that happen? Guy that's running the show down there, last name starts with a G. Right? We don't need family dynasties in politics in Iowa, Chuck and Pat. I'm just saying like I am, like I told you. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you, Steve. Long as we're on the carbon pipeline, because that affects, as some of you may not know, it affects the county supervisors also. And so I'm going to ask those questions about the pipeline. Brian and Tony, how familiar are you with the carbon pipeline?
Very little on my end.
I don't know nothing about it. I
Okay,
imagine a lot of people here don't know nothing about it either.
right.
Anybody care to explain?
Yeah, Steve
What are
will.
the benefits?
Yeah.
What are the benefits? What are the pros and the cons? Why are they running this carbon pipeline? What's the purpose? Because you have information on wind towers, you have information on the carbon pipeline. We need energy somehow, okay? I think we all agree we need energy. So, what are the pros and what are the cons?
There you go. See, you left too soon.
Well, this is not my meeting, this is Rebecca's.
This is all
And these
of our
guys,
meeting.
you guys need to
This
hear
is all
from these
of our
guys.
meeting.
Okay, I'll tell you what I know, and I can tell you that Tammy Cobbs of the John Birch Society had a gentleman by the name of Tom DeWeese who did a 5-stop tour through the state earlier this summer. I attended the one up in Sheldon. Tom DeWeese is not going to rest until this whole thing is dried up and goes away. As you know, first of all, wind energy won't survive without our tax subsidies. It's ridiculous. What they've done to our landscape is insane. They can't even recycle and recover those things. They don't have a plan for those monstrous carbon fiberglass blades that don't last very long when you think about how big they are and the whole forest and things that they deal with. They're destroying all the biome in the soil underneath them. They're ruining people's health that live close to them because it messes with the entire energy field that we live in, all right? They don't work. Ask the Texans what happens when they freeze up in the wintertime. Okay, that's wind energy. That's a whole, that's one boondoggle. That's already got, that horse has left the barn. We allowed that one to happen. By the way, one of my members fought down in Madison County, and they won. They stopped it. They wanted to put 80 of them up in beautiful Madison County, Iowa. Good. Done. They ran away.
So are you saying that you are promoting fossil fuels then?
Right now, the energy that we have, as an example, both diesel and gasoline, with the emission standards that are having to be met, I've spent most of my life in the automotive industry. Most of what's coming out of diesel trucks today and out of gas burning engines is vapor, it's water vapor. We're burning fossil fuel as cleanly as we've ever done it, okay? We're burning coal as cleanly as we've ever done it until we come up with a true energy. First of all, All this planet is energy. All right, Nick, you could go back, I don't want to get too far off the grid here. Nikola Tesla figured out how to tap energy a long, long time ago until J.P. Morgan put him out of business and bankrupt.
So you're fine with us having a pipeline? If they have a pipeline, they're going for fossil fuels across the United States. It doesn't matter if it's a carbon pipeline or a fossil fuel pipeline. They are going to take people's property for that pipeline, okay? So I'm just curious where you think we're gonna get the energy in this country and how you think we're gonna get it.
Well, currently the energy that we have is coming to us via a number of different ways, right? We're through pipeline, through rail transport, through over-the-road transport, things like that. They're talking about natural gas, oil, propane, et cetera, right? And do they have issues? Yeah. But when we do have not, listen, I'm a proponent of living in harmony with our planet, okay? When we have an oil leak, you know, from a pipeline, it's not a good thing, but we can clean it up and people don't die from it. If we have a CO2 pipeline leak, high pressure liquid carbon dioxide leak, it's a bad thing, okay? Really, these are two different issues we're talking about here. I get where you're going with this.
The one issue I guess that I have is you're saying that you're not for egress on people's property,
Yes,
pipelines, and
100%.
taking people's properties. They're both pipelines.
They are, but they're two different materials that are being transported through the pipelines. That's the thing that needs to be understood.
Is the property acquisition different technically?
Okay, well, listen, the use of eminent domain, and maybe one of these guys knows the law and policy that's in place right now in the state of Iowa, but my understanding is, first of all, those are called utilities, right? We're talking about gas, oil, things like that. Even fiber optics are running through some of those pipelines, things like that. Those are called public utilities. This particular pipeline, for these three pipelines, CO2 that we're talking about, are not public utilities. These are private companies. This is where the difference, the distinction has to be understood. Private companies, by the way, the Navigator pipeline is a portfolio of BlackRock. You know who BlackRock is, everybody?
Yeah.
Right, there's four companies, right, investment groups, I'll call them that, okay, that own almost all the wealth in this country, right? So we got BlackRock, we got Vanguard, State Street, and of course our friend down in Omaha, Berkshire Hathaway. You take those four groups together, they pull the strings on just about everything that happens anymore. They've bought just about everything they possibly get their hands on. Vanguard owns a big chunk of BlackRock, just to see how they're blended in together. So
you don't have a problem with the land acquisition?
Listen, eminent domain for private companies to come in and through the use of eminent domain take people's land,
I'm
no.
going to tell you on my land, I don't care if it's a private company or the government. It is what it is.
I agree. I think that that's your choice, and if you decide you don't want somebody running a pipeline of any kind through your private property, you should have the ability to say no. That's the bottom line. No, I don't agree with it. Now, when it comes to public utilities and things like that, that has to debate right now. It has to be debated through the proper channels. It's not necessarily the best thing, in my opinion. This is part of it. We have to take our rights back.
So what's your energy plan? What's your
I'm not up here to talk about my personal energy plan. Right now, I'm trying to address the carbon pipeline topic that I brought up here. And people are going, we got people in this room that don't know about this. This decision is going to be made by June of next year.
Let me interrupt you for a minute.
Please.
Please explain to us exactly what this pipeline is, what it does, and who benefits from it. Take all the politics out of it and just tell us about the pipeline.
I'll do the best I can, and Matt, or if any of you guys want to correct me on something I say that's not right, please do, okay? I'm not an expert.
Okay.
If Tammy were here, she knows the details even better than I do. Right now, the basics, the premise is there's too much carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. That's part of the whole green movement. That is scientifically wrong. In fact, right now, our CO2 levels are low. We have to have carbon dioxide on this planet for this circle of life to work, right?
Right.
We need the oxygen, our plants, all of our crops need CO2. That's just pure science, it's not me, right? Okay, so they're trying to sell everybody, and they're doing a good job of it for a lot of the woke left, that the world, the planet is warming because of us, because of CO2. First of all, we're all made of what? Carbon, yes. Well, they want to get rid of us too, so I guess there's too much CO2 and there's too many of us, right? The World Economic Forum thinks that the planet can only sustain 500 million people. There's only 7.5 billion. That means 7 billion of us need to go away as far as they're concerned. And they're telling everybody that today. I'm not making this up. It's right out there in front of us. And they're serious, y'all. They're very serious about it. Yes. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this. I'm standing up here talking to you guys because it's my children and their children I'm doing this for. I've lived a great life. If it ends tomorrow, I got nothing left to give. Go ahead, sir. I'm trying to take
The
this
eminent
over like this.
domain that you were talking about, I can't see where we can use and burn any energy from a carbon pipeline.
There's really no benefit. So I'll try to do this real quick, and then I gotta give it back. So, on the, and if you guys want to do this, listen, we can arrange for a CO2 deal here anytime you want. I mean, Tammy, and there's plenty of people who know about this and can educate. We need to get this out into the public domain, and we need to do it very, very quickly. Okay? Team Iowa right now, we've got 4 things we're working on. We're working on election integrity. We have something coming up here, right, in November. Making sure that this election doesn't get jacked like the one in 2020, okay? That's one. Whether you believe that or not, I don't care. Number 2, carbon capture. Number 3, human trafficking in the state of Iowa and child sex trafficking. We're going to be working on that, my group is. And number 4 is constitutional sheriffs and committees of safety and understanding the power of the sheriff and training and teaching our sheriffs in 99 counties about that. They're our last hope if things get nasty. And I think things are going to get nasty. CO2. So what can we do? What's the reason for it? The narrative is too much CO2. So they're going to run a pipeline. There's 5 states that surround us, and we're the biggest one, in fact, affected by this, to suck as excess CO2 that's produced in ethanol and fertilizer production facilities in these 5 states. So they're going to run spurs to these facilities. They're going to sequester the excess CO2 that's just escaping into the atmosphere. They're going to liquefy it and put it into a high-pressure pipeline that will be about 5 to 6 feet underground, 1,500 to 2,000 PSI. They're going to run, well, I think it's the Navigator, it might be someone, I can't remember which one. They want to run their pipeline to come down along the South Dakota, Minnesota border, and then come into the northwest corner of Iowa and go diagonally all the way across the state, up the southeast corner of the state and into south central Illinois, and then they're going to bury it in caverns a mile and a half under the ground of south central Illinois and sequester it. Now, what's it going to do? It's going to make the ethanol, it's going to give it a better rating in regards to carbon credits. Okay? So you know who wants the ethanol to be better or higher rated for carbon credits? The state of California. Now, where is California going with their vehicles? What's the plan? Electric. How much ethanol are we going to be shipping there in 10 years if they go electric? By the way, good luck, California.
I have a quick question. So they're taking the waste out of the fertilizer places, and they're going to dispose of it underground. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's the plan, yeah. Yeah, it makes no sense at all. There's money being made, actually, and the last thing I'm going to say, and I'm going to give it back, is this is at your expense. Yes. Taxpayer subsidized private companies building, and they're going to get tax credits and all kinds of other things, but it's at our expense.
What are they currently doing with the waste?
It just goes in the atmosphere.
Some of it gets processed.
Some of it gets processed. In the oil down south where this pipeline leak was in Mississippi, that actually, they're taking CO2 out of the ground and they're using it to flush excess oil out of the wells. So they're actually using the CO2, they're piping it in high-pressure pipelines, similar to what they want to build here, but they're using it to extract oil. That's what they're doing down south. Here, no. It's just going to go and stick it in the ground. Now, they want to run, I think if someone wants to run theirs up into North Dakota. Well, what's in North Dakota?
Balkan.
Yeah. Anyway, it's back. Sorry.
Thank you, Steve. This is the exact reason, on the flyer, we had originally put, free will donation accepted. And there was too many complaints, and so, but we wanted, the only reason that we put free will donation was if people wanted to donate money so that we could have these meetings more often and invite people like Steve and be informed so that we can inform the people about what's going on. But because we caught too much flack, we said, everybody said, we're donating our time. We're donating, some of us will pay, whatever. So in the future, if you want to have a meeting and you want to pay to have this hall, that's where we want to have you donate your money so that we can have more meetings like this. And they don't have to be Republican, they don't have to be Democrat, they can be citizen, grassroots. This is what we're about, grassroots. Yeah, I had to pay to rent this hall. Well, somebody did, I didn't, but anonymous person paid to rent this
How
hall.
much do they charge?
It depends on if you have food, it depends on if you have a kitchen. It's $20 an hour. Otherwise, if it's a political event, it's $125 right off the top. Anyway.
I sponsor the next 10 hours.
Let's get back to the pipeline. This question is it's for the supervisor candidates and the legislators. How many of the Navigator Summit or Wolf informational meetings have you attended?
None.
Tony?
I've been at the state ISAC conference where they briefed on it, but I don't think that was Navigated themselves, it wasn't.
Walter, have you been to any? Okay.
I don't know that I've been invited to any.
Okay. All right. You have? Okay. And for those of you that don't know, this is Brenda Loftus, our former assessor. Brenda. What do you understand is the difference between ambient CO2 and the pressurized CO2 that will be in the pipelines should this pipeline be constructed? Do any of you understand that?
Ambient CO2 that just is created naturally, and then the pressurized CO2 that's going to be liquefied.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference. They're going to pressurize it, liquefy it, and potentially put it through the pipeline. So your ambient CO2 is what occurs naturally in nature. This is the byproduct of the fertilizer facilities and the ethanol plants. As he talked about, it's inspired by all the stuff that goes on in DC and the credits they have out there for carbon capture.
It really is a UN initiative. In the long run, this is a UN-driven Agenda 2030. It was 2021, now 2030, now 2050, right? Because why are the dates getting pushed back? Because we're pushing back.
Right. Yay.
So Matt, as a state legislature, what can you do to help?
Microphone, or are you good?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. The process that we go through right now when it comes to eminent domain is that a company would have to file a Schedule H in order to start the process of triggering the IUB, Iowa Utilities Board, which is a 3-member panel. They would have to review it. The IUB would then set up public hearings in any location where eminent domain may potentially be used. What the proposals and like Summit, Navigator, I can't remember the third one.
I got it here. I don't remember.
Wolf International.
Wolf International. What they're going through the process of right now is getting voluntary easements. I've had a lot of different conversations with folks on both sides of this issue. I know that at least for Summit Carbon Solutions, they're at, I want to say, 50 to 55% voluntary easements right now, where they've approached landowners. They said, hey, we can get the pipeline approved. We want to run through this portion of your ground. Will you voluntarily agree to have this easement for X amount of years? We will pay you X amount of dollars for those years. Now that they've got 50 to 55% voluntary easements for that one proposed pipeline, I don't know about the other ones, they're already cutting checks to those landowners right now. So they're paying them. You're shaking your head no.
No, you're right, I'm just shaking my head how undisturbing that is, but yes.
Okay.
It's disturbing in the fact that, it's disturbing in the fact that how they're going about it. They're saying, well, if you don't take this, what the money we're gonna give you, we're gonna get it by eminent domain.
We're gonna sue.
Yeah.
So just so you know, there was a victory last week in Woodbury County. We had the farmers that actually won. We had a judge that ruled against Navigator, and Navigator now has pulled back in a number of places.
Right.
So you have to understand that they're trying to get them to volunteer, and if they don't,
They sue them.
they'll sue the landowner.
There are 5 cases, I have an email about 5 cases where these pipeline companies are suing the landowners because they say, no, we're not selling you our ground.
It's intimidation.
This affects your local income too.
Right.
I am now in Hamilton County. I have a 5-year PAB case with Poet Biorefining, and they are partnered with Navigator to provide the CO2 spur to their facility in Hamilton County. They appealed to PAB to lower their assessment and lower their taxes ultimately, because they claimed that they were not making a profit and they had to redo their whole facility in order to do the biorefinery, which is false. There's actually news articles that say that they stated that they didn't have to do that. They're profiting then again from the CO2 because they're selling it to the bottling companies. And now we as citizens are going to pay for them to put the pipeline in so they can benefit more, and they're going to appeal all their property taxes, so you as citizens then also get to pay more.
You cannot financially pencil this out and show a profit in this as far as these pipeline companies. It's all, I'm telling you, they're putting this all together and it's nonsense. And now they're riding on the backs of all of us and at the same time taking our property. And this is private, I can't emphasize enough, you guys. These are private companies that are going to try and steamroll over these people. They're going to try to use duress, and they're going to, through their power, their legal, the money they have, and the lawyers and everything else. And I mean, what Matt's saying is true, but you have to tell the whole story on how they're doing it. This is, it sounds like they're voluntarily, yeah, send me the money, right? Yeah, I get there's going to be people who are going to do that, but they are really understanding the risks that are involved. Not only if we have a leak, what's it going to do to the environment? Oh, what is it easement? Are they going to be able to run over the top of that with their disc and put crops over the top of that? I mean, I don't know all the details from that point.
Right.
But
So I want to know, are you okay with that, Matt? With everything they're saying, is this okay with you?
No, nobody should ever have their private property taken for
I'm talking about
a,
the whole process, everything they're talking about, everything
Well,
they're explaining.
that's part of the answer that I'm trying to get to. So I'll get to that point. So you asked, what can the legislature do to try and protect private landowners? Well, with the process that is in place, if one of these companies files for the use of eminent domain, like I said, they have to then go to those locations where eminent domain is going to be applied or potentially be applied. They have to hold public hearings with the public, with the people that would be affected by the use of eminent domain. And the Iowa Utilities Board would have to determine whether or not that is, there's a specific term they use, and I can't remember what it exactly is, but it's for the common good of the people.
Exactly. There's a
But
phrase.
it's not a utility. I want to break in. I know I keep interrupting you, but it's not a utility. The carbon capture pipeline is not a utility. That's one of the questions that somebody sent to me. Is it right for the Iowa Utilities Board, 3 members that are unelected, to have the power to determine whether or not such a line goes through a vast majority of Iowa's farmland?
That is a question the legislature could look at. I agree that it's not a utility by definition of either wind or power, electric, things of that nature, or natural gas lines, right? But if one of these companies decides, like Navigator is the one that I hear the most horror stories about, where they've threatened the use of eminent domain. Summit, on the other hand, I've talked with their representatives, they're land prospectors. They have told me specifically that they had fired one that was actually trying to do the same thing, like intimidation through saying, hey, well, we can just file for eminent domain. Other than that, they're genuinely trying to get people on board voluntarily, and they have not used eminent domain. They can't use eminent domain. They can file a Schedule H, But until it goes through the public hearing process, and that won't happen until at least February. I know that specifically because I've talked to the chair of the IUB, Jerry Huser. I served with her in the legislature my first 4 years. She told me specifically, or very distinctly in my office, that the IUB would not be holding public hearings until after the legislature was back in session. So if these companies are bad actors, or they're doing things that are nefarious, and they are actually trying to intimidate landowners, the legislature can come in, and this is an answer to your question, I believe an answer to yours, the legislature can come in and make changes if we need to. But the process has been in place for this type of these type of projects for a lot longer than I've been in the legislature. And I've specifically asked to get a map, and I've got it on in my email on my computer, of how many pipelines there are in Iowa. We've got thousands, tens of thousands of miles of pipelines right now that pipe petroleum, they pipe natural gas, propane in the winter. I mean, Iowa is covered with pipelines right now, all right?
So we don't need one more.
Well, so the legislature can take action if there is, as we get more information on this, and if there is abuses of the processes in place.
The other thing that I know that JBS has talked about, one solution would be to take the power of the IUB away and give it to our legislators.
Yes.
All right? They represent us. The IUB does it.
That's the question. That's one of the questions I have on here is, will you commit to removing the power of there's 3 individuals by changing the law. You say they've been doing it for years. That's the problem with this country. We keep saying, well, that's the way we've been doing it for years. I don't give a rat's patootie what we've been doing for years. It's not working. Start changing it.
What's the definition of insanity?
Joe Biden.
The principle is doing the same thing over and over again. Okay, so Matt, I want to know, let's say this CO2 pipeline goes through. From what you just said, in Mississippi, the first responders are not trained, they are not protected with hazmat suits or whatever they need to be able to withstand a leak or whatever. So if this pipeline goes through, I'm legitimately asking this, I have family that are volunteers, EMTs, firefighters. Will our local governments at that point provide and train our volunteer fire departments and rescue squads and give them the equipment that they need to come out to help our families when they're in need?
Who's liable for the leak?
Yes,
That's
exactly.
the question
And
needs to
who's
be asked
liable?
when people die.
Okay, the owner of the pipeline would be liable, all right, so that's where that would lie, depending upon who is the shareholders there and how they're structured as a corporation. As far as the training and everything else, I can't speak absolutely to that, but that could be a conversation that if the pipeline were to go through, whether it's Summit, Navigator, or Wolf, that those people could have, those folks in those communities that might be affected, could have with those companies.
I think that needs to be mandatory.
And
I really do.
again,
Because if something happens like what happened in Mississippi, these are our families. And these are our first responders that in these small towns are all volunteer mostly.
Your apparatus will not run in a cloud of CO2.
No.
The equipment shuts down. It has to have
So
oxygen
they've got to
and
have something
to
to
work.
work.
I asked that question specifically about the Mississippi problem. The information that I've been given or been shown is that with the advancements in technologies and how they monitor the systems with these carbon capture pipelines, especially because of the high pressure, they know instantaneously if there's a drop in pressure, and they can shut down section by section in order to stop it. So, I'm, again, not an expert. I'm a knuckle-dragging Marine that loads beer trucks for a living, all right? But I've taken in all the information that I possibly can so that we can make the best informed decision as we come back into session and as we see how things progress.
So when you go back into session, is that one thing that you will cover personally is our first responders and making sure that they are at least trained?
Those are
How about we
conversations.
just work on legislation, not have the pipeline?
Absolutely.
Ron, go ahead.
Well, we have to remember that this carbon pipeline is not an energy pipeline for the common good of the people or the citizens.
Exactly.
Why is it in the hands of the utility board?
I agree,
It's not
yeah.
a utility.
Yep.
It's not a utility, Matt.
Follow the money.
Have you received, this is a question, another question, we're gonna go speak about it's not a public utility. This person says, have you received campaign funds or any money from Bruce Rastetter, Terry Branstad, or any of the 3 pipeline entities? That's a question for both Mark and Matt.
The answer, Terry Brand said no. Yes, I talked to Bruce Rastetter on Friday, and he has a check coming in the mail to me. As far as the pipelines themselves, I don't believe that I have, but with the amount of checks that I get, I honestly don't remember all of them.
Don't believe that you have.
Yeah.
Check on that.
So just so y'all know, Bruce Rastetter is the CEO of Summit Carbon Solutions. He donated
25,000. 125 to Kim Reynolds.
125,000 to Governor Reynolds, just so you know. We're in full disclosure here, so, you
We need
know.
legislators with their hearts for the people.
But why
For
are
the
we,
people.
why are we messing with this pipeline in the first place?
Right.
Since the carbon dioxide that's produced goes into the atmosphere, which helps the entire planet.
Yep.
Why are we taking it out of the atmosphere and shoving it underground somewhere when we don't have to? That's the whole point.
The money,
I know
okay,
it's for money, but these guys gotta, what are they getting out of it?
Money.
money. That's my other question is, my question for Matt, when we had a conversation, and I'll ask you again, nobody is going to take CO2, pipe it, build pipeline across the state of Iowa into Illinois or up to North Dakota for nothing. They're standing to make millions and billions of dollars. But that's not our money, or that's the federal government's money.
Are there two different kinds of CO2 we're talking about here?
No.
One that goes into the atmosphere and one that liquefies?
Yes, ambient CO2 is the CO2 that just,
CO2.
They're both CO2.
carbon dioxide goes into, they're both
One
CO2.
is put in
So
the-
we're trying to find a solution for the liquid CO2? Is that?
They liquefy.
Am I understanding that
We
correctly?
don't need to. They're just, this is a way for them to make money.
We're finding a solution to a problem that doesn't exist.
It's a nonprofit.
Isn't that the government's job? Yeah.
So what other solutions do they have for this?
There is not a problem.
Not a problem.
The CO2, we actually, he said, actually, the carbon dioxide levels are the lowest they've been in a long time, so it's not a problem.
That's science.
We actually need to increase the CO2, not decrease it.
Right.
And that's why I'm trying to figure out, why are we bothering with this? If you go to a greenhouse, they introduce CO2 into the greenhouse to
correct.
make things grow better. So why are we taking it out of our atmosphere and shoving it underground? That makes absolutely no sense. We grow corn here, right?
So they can get rid of 7 billion people.
I'm gonna
I know.
go to Tony and Brian, because at one of the last supervisor meetings, they were talking about ordinances for wind and carbon pipelines, wind generators and carbon pipelines. What do you know about the ordinances, or what can we do, Tony, about the ordinances, as far as ordinances, so that we can't necessarily, at this level, can't necessarily keep them out, but can we make ordinances that make it more difficult?
Well, we're definitely hoping that. Work with other counties on specifically the pipeline and windmills as well. On the pipeline, Steve Kinkle in Harlan has really been leading the way at that in Shelby County. And he's working with the state, Iowa State, on some more politically incorrect term roadblocks to slow down them coming to our area. Specifically salt compaction, also separation. We've got a carbon pipeline plotted to go 50 foot from the Little League baseball field in Early. Because that's all the requirement right now, is 50 foot from a pipeline. So we're trying to put some county stuff in place. Really, the state has more of a lead on this. We feel actually we're kind of fighting the state in some of this stuff. We understand the money's being thrown around at the state level. We also understand the pipeline is being funded through carbon credits created by the federal government. And these companies are just going out to make money off of this. I mean, that's all they're doing this for. For example, Denison. Denison didn't participate in the original carbon pipeline. I don't think they still are. If you go to Denison, there is a carbon capture company across the road who takes their carbon dioxide and they use that in the refrigeration of warehouses. That's where that stuff's going to. This whole thing here is a boondoggle to take over there. And what we're trying to do is simply slow it down at the county level. We are working with the other counties. Crawford County right now is working on a wind generator proposal. We also looked at Pages. I've got Page counties right now. Page County tried to put a height limit on the wind generators down there and have a really good ordinance. The wind generator company is now, Mid-America is now suing them. So those are the problems we're running at the county level, but we are trying to do what's right to keep out what we think is unnecessary structures, especially pipelines and things like that.
Create bigger easements.
Bigger easements is the other
A
thing.
1 mile, a 2 mile easement.
Yes.
You do that, and a pipeline company is done.
They're very upset about the proposal that Shelby County's working on, which is 2 miles from any inhabitants, by towns and stuff.
Right.
So, and we also brought up, it was a good point you just brought up, we're talking about the safety portion, where, wait a minute, you're coming through my county, what are you providing for safety for all my personnel and equipment, or firefighters and all that kind of stuff? That's not even discussed. So, what we're trying to do at the county level is things that we know we can control and put in our ordinances to try to stop this as well.
Thank you.
And I know we would like to talk more about this, but we don't have time. We have till noon, so I want to get on to some of the other subjects. Like Scott just said, we need to have more meetings. That's what we wanted to do. We need to get together. We need to talk. Most of you know my number. We can get you in touch with Renee. We need to do more of this. One real quick thing, Iowa Farm Bureau, Esther Arkfeld was here, and she tried to get a raw milk bill through last year, and it didn't go. Iowa Farm Bureau is one of the biggest proponents against the raw milk bill. If I want to buy raw milk from my neighbor, I know the risks. Why can't I buy raw milk from my neighbor?
Ridiculous.
But they're fighting it. So what she said is, if you are a Farm Bureau member, you need to send them a resolution. You can, I'm not anymore, but you can send them a resolution telling them, and I can get you in touch with Esther so she can help you. And I don't particularly buy raw milk, but I like to get raw milk from my daughter when I go up to visit her. But it's not just raw milk. It's like, why should the government be able to tell us if we want to buy a pie from our neighbor? I'm going to buy a pie from my stinking neighbor. I don't want to have to take a chance of going to jail. But there have been people have gone to jail for selling raw milk to someone who willingly bought it. It's like there's just too many laws.
That's your government at work, people.
Yeah, and Iowa Farm Bureau has lobbyists down in the Capitol. As a lot of you know, I went down to the Capitol a lot this year, and I'm very talkative, as you can tell. I would introduce myself to these people that I would see several, and I met the Farm Bureau lobbyists. They're lobbyists, that's what they do. They take their money and they lobby these guys and get them to make laws or vote against laws that they don't like. That's not the people. Why are we letting lobbyists make the laws? Because that's where the money is. Follow the money.
Matt, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
That raw milk bill right there, do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
You agree that there should be government oversight on that and people should, or do you believe that that is wrong?
No, I believe in freedom. You want to buy raw milk, go buy raw milk.
Well, do something about it, guys. Come on.
I have.
You
The
know?
Senate was finally able to get a bill through the Senate last year. It came over to the House. I did everything I could, lobbying the Speaker and also the Agricultural Committee Chair, but between the two of them, they decided to kill it. I couldn't do anything. Once a bill's in committee, I don't have control over it until it comes out of committee.
Matt, how can you guys communicate to the constituents who are supporting you on these things to go to fight on your behalf, right? When you're in session, both of you guys, when you're in session, I think that you guys are aligned with a lot of what we're talking about here. But at the end of the day, I can't tell you how many emails, phone messages I left in Des Moines, whether it was, I don't know, Matt, if I thought I may have reached out to you and some of the others. Never heard word. I never got a thing back. I sent stuff to Joni Ernst, that ridiculous thing we call a senator now, and all I did is a flipping paper back about what she did to us on the Second Amendment was absolutely irresponsible and unforgivable just recently. I know I'm off topic, but how can we help you to get these guys
who are rhinos, Republicans in name only, to stop their nonsense and do what we want them to do as conservative Christian Republicans.
The best answer I can give you is you have to have the grassroots from within their own districts reach out to them, all right? Now listen, I get thousands upon thousands of emails a year, all right? I get message after message after message, all right? And I get them from all over the state. I do my best to always respond to my constituents first. As Rebecca said, she's contacted me many times. There's other folks in this room that have contacted me on other issues. I try and stay on top of that as best I can. But if I'm getting, 10, 15, 20 emails from outside the district, I have to prioritize my constituents, all right? Now, there are times where it's an issue specific that I know that I've got control over, or that I've got, information on that I can be helpful to somebody, I do try and reach back out to them. But if I get the same form email over and over and over again, those all go in a folder. And I just look at that like, okay, we got all these. So the answer to your question is, I'm accountable to the folks in this room that are my constituents, that I seek to represent. When Rebecca calls me, even though we may disagree on a few things from time to time, I still take her phone call and I still respond back. When Ron Duncan, where'd Ron go? Ron. When Ron calls me or emails me, it's the same thing. I hear my constituents louder than I hear people outside the district. I know that is not the answer that you want to hear, but you've got to get the grassroots from within the legislators' districts to get their attention and talk to them about these things.
And then create a coalition within that community in the Senate or in the House.
Correct.
To work together.
Correct. Now listen.
But you have a leadership role, don't you?
I'm the majority leader.
Okay.
Yes. But see, even as a majority leader, I have a very heavy responsibility load, but it doesn't mean that I get everything that I want. I literally, when the raw milk bill came to us this last session, we worked with Senator Schultz, who is our current senator, and we worked on it for years, even back when he was in the House. When he sent it over, he said, I've made every compromise I possibly can. This is such a watered down bill, but it still gets us to raw milk. They were able to get it through the Senate. I had my legislative page, that I get a page every year. I had her make up a little 8x10 sign that said raw milk equals freedom. And I stuffed it under the glass in the speaker's table in his office, and I left it there. And every time I went into his office, I was like, freedom, Pat, freedom. Now, I'm not trying to throw the speaker under the bus, but...
Go ahead.
No,
Just go ahead.
No, that's not my place. He and I have to work together for the better of all Iowans and the people that we serve. So, but he has an opposition to it. He's voted against it in the past for his own reasons. I asked him to send it to a different committee other than agriculture because I knew it was probably going to die in agriculture. The decision was made to send it to agriculture, which is not in my control. The bill died in committee. All right, but it doesn't mean I'm going to quit. Look, it took me and my colleagues, including Senator Costello, over 15 years to finally get us to constitutional carry here in Iowa. All right, we had to start from a May issue system. We started from a May issue system. We went to shall issue in 2010. In 2017, we had the largest firearms freedom bill that any state has ever seen. We had about 25 different components in it, and we revamped the system. But then it wasn't until a few years later that I was finally able to get constitutional carry done. And now we also have the Freedom Amendment on the ballot. As Rebecca talked about, flip your ballot over, it's Prop 1. You need to vote for that. And I'll get into specifics on that if we have time. But you have to build the coalitions within those communities, and it takes time on some of these issues. Even for something as no-brainer as raw milk, it takes time.
It's unbelievable, but I thank you for that. Those kind of directions are important for constituents to understand how it works.
Right. On the raw milk thing, if you're a Farm Bureau member, get that issue and say, no, we don't agree with Farm Bureau's policy, because they really, I mean, they have a grassroots policy. They ask their members they poll them on things. And if the members will vote, say, yeah, we're okay with raw milk, that will help a lot, I'm sure.
Yes.
Thank you, Mark.
Can I do a quick follow-up with Matt on that?
Yeah.
The folder that you just described with all your non-district emails, is there some reason you can't share those with the districts that should go to help us facilitate the grassroots?
The answer to your question is yes, I can, but when we're getting the form emails, we're pretty much all getting the same email, and I don't do it by just out of district. I've got subfolder upon subfolder upon subfolder, and I categorize them by issue. A lot of times these emails that come in, you know who they're from because they put a name on them, but they don't necessarily put a town. All right, so then to try and take a form email and send it back over to a legislator, most of them are sitting there, delete, 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 and they're not, because you can't respond to everything that you get. There's not enough time in the day. Between the phone calls, the legislative work, and everything else, you can't do it. You'd have to be up for 36 hours straight in one single day, and there's only 24 hours in a day.
Fair enough.
And that's one thing I'd like to commend Matt, and I haven't worked with Mark yet, but they have, like he said, they get tons of stuff. I'm not even a legislator, and I get so many emails, and I get calls, and I get texts. And if I ever don't answer you, this is what I want to say for them. If they ever don't answer you, it's not because they're ignoring you. They have so much stuff, and it may get, as Matt knows, they may answer a quick text, and then they forget about it because they're getting hundreds of texts and calls and emails a day. It's not just you. So they're not ignoring you. They just, maybe overlooked it or didn't get back to it. So give these guys a break. They have a hard job. I agree. I understand just from my little miniature perspective. Because I know Matt is really good about getting back, and Jason always was, and I'm sure Mark will be too. So just give them a break. They are trying. It's not that they don't want to talk to you. Go ahead, Jack.
I'm Brian Jackholder. I'm from Council Bluffs, Crescent area. I'm running for Congress in the 4th District with Randy and the Democrat, just to give people another vote. But what's frustrating with some of us that used to be members of the party, thank you for being here, Mark, and thank you for being here, Mr. Winchittle. But a year and a half ago, the Republicans increased my burden to get on the ballot to run for U.S. Congress by 400%. And they did this over the period of just about 2 weeks between they introduced the bill, they had the subcommittee hearing, the committee hearing, and then they voted on it. You know what? What was the expeditious reason for doing that, but then you drag your feet on these other things? There was no reason to make it more difficult for any of us to run for office. I recommend all of us run in the primaries with these Republicans because that's how you hold people accountable. If you're just sitting out here, that's one thing, but look at how much she's done to bring people together, and that's from running, and thank you for running.
There you go, I'm on the ballot.
All right, well, thank you for running.
Let's change change the direction just a little bit because we've got to get to everything, and we have so much. We need to have another meeting, but let's change to the county. Give Matt and Mark a little bit of a break. Change to the county level for a minute. Our county's a mess. Who would agree?
The whole country's a mess.
But one of the things that I want to touch on today is the fact that these two gentlemen won the Republican primary. They won, fair and square. They're both Republicans. And my blunt self is going to say, I wasn't for Tony. But these two won the primary. So why are we trying to water down the vote and add 3 more candidates to the ballot? That's just all I'm going to say. Why are we watering down the vote so that these two guys can't win? You answer that question yourself. Go ahead, Roger.
Most of you probably don't know me, but a lot of you do. I'm Roger Gunderson. I'm on the ballot. I'm running for the Board of Supervisors. And the best I can say is I know you're all intelligent, competent people, and you've had good people there, but I think I'm pretty good too. So I'm asking for as many people want to vote for me.
Why didn't you run?
Why didn't you run in the primary, Roger?
Huh?
Why didn't you run in the primary?
I wasn't invited. I'm an independent. No, now listen, I'm an independent. I'm not organized with either party, so.
But as of June 6th, Roger, were you not a Democrat?
I don't have too many issues right now, but I'm still researching, so it'll sound like, I know what's going on.
But as of June 6th of 2022, you're a registered Democrat, right?
I can tell you one thing about the pipeline issue, and I wouldn't.
No, I just want to answer my question. I don't care.
Okay.
I just want to know, as of June 6th, 2022, were you a registered Democrat?
As of June 6, 2022, were you a registered Democrat?
I probably was registered as a Democrat. I'm running as an independent here.
Like, because that's the only option. Okay, I just wondered. I don't have an issue with any of the candidates. I'm not saying they're bad people, I'm just wondering, why would we water it down? Why would we water it down? Just need to do some research. That's the thing. This is why we're having this meeting. People, do your research before you vote. If you don't know, don't just go in there and mark the box. I don't want you to just vote for them because they're Republicans.
Right.
I want you to vote for them because they can do the job. Go ahead.
I would like to have them speak for themselves and to be able to tell us a little bit about themselves.
Yeah, I think that we'll do that. We'll do it. I'll go get my phone and we'll do a time. If you want a microphone, or would you rather not have one?
I'll talk with the microphone.
Thank you.
I'm Brian Reif from Damon. I'm joined with my beautiful wife Jeanette today. I didn't get on the flyer. I asked Rebecca not to put me on the flyer because we weren't real sure if we were going to be here today. We are about 5 days away from having a baby, so any moment now we can just get up and go. In Damon, I run a small trucking company, just my own little truck, haul grain, haul seed. I also sell seed for Beck's Seed Company, so any of you farmers want seed, I'm your Beck's guy. I helped my dad on the family farm, have since I could walk basically. See, I rode on the fender of a tractor and grew up on the family farm. My governmental experience, I started on the city council in Damon, served there for 6 years. I then moved to mayor, served as mayor for 6 years. I stepped away because my opinion is, after serving in an office, you need to get away and let somebody new come in. You get too used to those sitting in that office and look at new ideas. So I stepped away from it. They still, the last 2 elections, they wrote me in and I won, but I declined it because let somebody else get in there. With the mayor, I have also served on the assessors board. I served on the EMA, I served on the 911 board, the LAPC. I was instrumental in getting a teammates mentoring program into West Harrison. That was probably one of the biggest accomplishments, I think, in my existence. Getting mentors in with them kids that need it. I also, by getting that board in, I served as vice president of the West Harrison chapter of teammates. I am currently serving as a fire chief in Damon. I've been on the department since 2009. I'm on my 2nd term there as fire chief. We do need a few changes. I don't want to sit here and say our government's broken, our county's broken, because there's a lot of good that still happens in Harrison County. So we need to, whatever's happened in the past, I don't think we need to sit and dwell on it. Let's move forward. Let's try and get some new things going. Let's change the attitude around. I know a lot of people say, well, you walk in and it's just kind of doom and gloom. Let's cheer that up. That's one of my goals in the courthouse is let's get a positive attitude. When you walk in, I want everybody to feel welcome, feel like you had a good experience. Any of our county offices. I'm not going to point fingers at anybody. We all want to have a positive experience there. I think there's some spending things we could change. I know one thing, and Tony disagrees with me. That's fine. We can work through it. I would like to share an engineer. I don't understand why every county has its own engineer and then hires an outside company to do our engineering for us. Part of that reason, I guess, I do know a little bit, we don't have the staffing. There's not enough staffing in any engineer office in the county, in the state of Iowa, to actually engineer a project. So if we could share them offices, we can cut a lot of money by engineering our own projects and not hiring an outside company to come in and engineer for us. So I'd like to look into that. That's preliminary. Let's work and try and get to a point where, yes, this makes sense, we're ready to move forward. Let's not just push into it and not cross our T's and dot our I's. I also have common sense. That's what's helped me, I guess, in Damon is we don't always have to do the things that don't make sense, the solutions for something that's not a problem. Let's use common sense in government. That's going to get us a long ways at any level of government. One of the things that sets me apart is I'm the youngest candidate running. So I bring a little bit of youth into this office. No offense. And I think that's part of what, moving forward in the county, to have your economic development, we have to find ways to bring young people in and have families. All 5 of our schools need families. We need kids coming into our county. So we have to find that balance. What is going to grow our county but also keep our values, what we want here in Harrison County? We don't want to just move everybody in here. We want to continue to keep our values. So that's important to find that balance. I also serve every person in Harrison County. I have not taken any campaign funds. There's no money trail coming back to me. I'm self-funded, so I serve every single one of you. I don't serve any special interest group. I am Republican, but I'm Republican because I'm Christian. My Christian values in the Republican Party line up more than any other party, so that's why I'm serving in this party. When I'm done with an office, any office I've ever served, my number one goal is to be able to look everybody in the eye. When I decide I don't want to be supervisor, or when you say, hey, your time's up, we're putting somebody else in there, I still want to be able to look every one of you in the eye. And I'll close with, it's never made more sense to me to vote straight party ticket. This state, for this country, from top to the bottom, I don't see anything on the Democrat side that makes more sense. Top to bottom, straight party ticket. From Todd Halbert, everyone. So I would appreciate your vote. You have a question?
I just want to make one comment on that. It appears, and this goes from the federal level all the way down to our local level regarding the Republican Party, we've been infiltrated. Okay? We've been infiltrated. And we have to identify the infiltrators. We refer to them as rhinos, right? Republicans in name only. We have to identify them at every level of our government, whether you're talking about township, city, county, all the way up, state, federal. Identify them and get them out of this party. Yeah. We not only need to take our republic back, we need to take this party back. I've been to the Central Committee in Woodbury County and listened to that nonsense that those Republicans are spewing up there. I'm like, you people are asleep.
Okay, to answer that, I think we do that at the primary, and I think that happened in Harrison County.
That's why some of us in Harrison County are getting ready to leave.
Okay, we're gonna give 25 minutes, and then we have questions real quick. These guys and the other supervisor candidates are gonna be in Missouri Valley on October 25th. So after Tony talks for 5 minutes, we're gonna, sorry you guys, we're gonna focus on the state candidates. We got some questions we gotta get in real quick.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks for putting this on today. Everybody helped with it. I appreciate it. Always learn something at these meetings. And Todd, you have my vote. Based on what you found as far as the fraud and such, I'm going to go back and tell everybody the price of beer is going down in Iowa. I'm all on board with it.
Price of liquor, not...
Price of liquor, there we go.
Better yet.
That's Matt's job up here.
I'm just finishing my first term with the Board of Supervisors, and I can't tell you it's always been fun. But I've always been in public service, and it's rewarding, and I love giving back. I base pretty much everything I do on 5 things in life. Number 1's my faith. If you don't have that, you don't have a basis for anything. Second's my spouse. We've been married 42 years now, and I would not be where I'm at without her. And I'm very devoted to her. Then my kids are very important, and it's very true that grandkids are the reward for having kids, because we've got 5 of those. And, for example, today I'm a farmer, and my grandson's out there running the combine. I couldn't be more proud and to watch that legacy continue. Anybody's been in that situation. My community, Harrison County, you have to love where you live. You do. You have to love and you have to be involved in what you do. You have to give back to that community, and I've always done that. And that's a big part of my life. And finally, my vocation. I've had a few different vocations, but I've loved all of them. I spent 23 years in the military. I'm a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel. Thank you. And the Army guys are always going in to help out the Marines because they don't have staying power. This never happens in real life. No, we never tease each other, do we? Yeah. No, we actually get along very well, and that's the fun part of the military. It's a community. It's just, there's a lot to be done. And I think the best way to approach things as a county supervisor is to listen to people, to listen to concerns, be public, be out there, and then make the best decision you can. And that's what I've tried to do in this last 4 years, make the best decision I can do. And I've had a lot of help, a lot of good advice, and I appreciate that a lot. I also serve on EMA, Emergency Management, I serve on the landfill. I'm a member of the 8-County Juvenile Detention Center Board. I sit on the Mental Health and Disability Services Board, and I gotta say to the state guys, thank you for helping us out on that. The state finally took over the funding of that. We used to fund by ourselves. We appreciate that a lot. That was a big step. That was a good thing to be done. Thank you. I've been on the fair board. We got a great county fair. What I'm trying to say is all those things I did gave me a flavor for the county and for the people that live in it. And I can't say enough about it. I enjoy this job. I ask for your vote in the re-election, and I will do the very best I can do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. I encourage you all to, if you support these gentlemen, get out and put out their signs. Any of these gentlemen up here, if you support them, get out, put out their signs, tell people about them, tell them why you believe in these people. Todd, I'm going to do some door knocking for Todd, just because Todd's not from this district, and he's a statewide candidate. I'm going to get out and do some door knocking for him, help put out some signs, let people know he's here, what he's done so far, and what he says he's going to do for us in the state of Iowa. If you want to join me, let me know. Otherwise, just tell your friends, get some of his literature, give it to your friends, say vote for Todd. I'm going to move on quick. Like I said, I have questions for these guys, but we're going to move on to a couple other questions because I know people have any questions. Dawn's going to ask one in just a little bit, but real quick, we all have heard Iowa has a surplus of money that is to be given/designated back to the citizens. How is the progress going on that? Meaning, in what fashion, how long can Iowans expect to see this take place?